What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Other Side of the Firewall podcast. We're talking about the latest and greatest of cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers. Those people of color have made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shan Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
And Chris Abacon.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on? So, welcome to Wednesday discussion. So for you who may be new, Monday, Tuesday are topics. Wednesday, we do a discussion. Thursdays, Ask a CISSP, where I do interviews. And then Fridays, everything else, movies, books, games, all that cool stuff. But if you're listening to us on the radio, so 99.1 FM out in the Atlanta metro area, or tune in through the TuneIn app, you get everything all in 1 hour-long chunk. Or if you're watching this on Channel 10 in the DC Fairfax area, public access, and you also get either an interview or you get a week's worth of episodes all at one time. So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate however you're listening to us. Just please continue to do so, and if you have the time, please leave us a review. But without further ado, I give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. This article comes from techdirt.com, and I'll tell you the department that wrote this, and it'll all make sense after I read the title, right? So it's from the Gotta Spy on Them All department, and the title of the article is Saudi Arabia buys everybody's sensitive Pokemon Go location data. So gotta catch them all, gotta spy on them all department, right? It was a cool play, I thought anyway. But I'm a dad now, so it's
Dad
a dad
joke
type thing, yeah. But so here's the deal, right? Saudi Arabia bought the company Niantic. What was the name of the company? Nana? I can't remember it. But they bought the company that owned Pokemon Go, which as you guys all remember, Niantic.
Niantic.
Yeah. So Saudi Arabia has bought them, right? And so they have all that sensitive Pokemon Go location data that everybody had to allow to be done to play the Pokemon Go back in, was that 2016? I want to say it was, because I want to say it was when I was first PCSing, and I was almost hitting people in the street that just weren't watching what they were doing and just looking at their phones, trying to get to the next
walking
Pokemon.
into traffic.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. It was wild. Like in downtown Colorado Springs, I'm not joking when I say that. When I PCSed here, that's what people were doing. It was just like this, just walking across the street. I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? You know what I mean? My son even, when he got his phone, my youngest son, when he got his phone, he wanted to play Pokemon Go years later. And I was like, no, it's like, we are not going down this road. You know what I mean? But yeah. So here's the thing. And Chris, we talk offline about this stuff, and Chris was bringing up some good points on this about selective outrage. This is something that happens a lot, right? Do we not care because it's Saudi Arabia, right? Because sometimes they are an ally, sometimes they're not. It depends on the month, right? On what we want to get after them for. But we should have issues when this happens any time, right? I'm saying even with American companies, with them getting sensitive location like this, like it should be a problem. But we don't care because we're just like, hey, I want to play the game, right? Or I want to do this. I want to just sign over whatever, right? Nobody's reading the EULAs anymore. They're just like, yeah, agree, right? I don't want to have to go through these 31 paragraphs of whatever it is you're telling me you're going to do, right? Which is kind of weird, right? Because again, the second something comes out, we're all, oh, well, I didn't know they were doing that. Well, you clicked agree, right? You have the app on your phone or your computer or whatever. And you sat here and you sat here and played it for who knows how long, right? But as soon as the privacy becomes an issue, right, all of a sudden we're mad about it. But yeah, so this was a $3.85 billion deal that Saudi paid for this, right? Which is nothing to them, right? They got that Earl money, you know what I mean? So it's nothing for them to pay $3.85
pocket change. Because I looked at my couch and I found this.
Yeah, you know,
is this enough?
I looked in my yachts that I've already discarded because they got wet. As soon as one gets wet, I buy it.
Throw it away.
Know, that's how they do it in
like
Saudi.
A dirty pair of ones, like Air Force Ones.
Yeah, it's like Dame Dash with the white tees, right? He only wore them one time, right? So yeah, it's crazy, but this should absolutely be a thing all the time. It shouldn't just be because Saudi's buying it, right? And again, we just let it happen, right? Like we do not have the privacy laws. It's not as profitable to some of the companies here to have the privacy laws that some of these other countries have, right? Like the EU, even some of the Nordic countries are getting on board with this, where they do this a little bit better than a lot better than what we do. But yeah, this was an interesting read, but I really did like from the Gotta Spy on Them All department. And as you read through this article, as you guys read through it, like it's definitely leaning a certain way. Like they have some things they want to say, you know what I mean? But it's still kind of a fun read. But Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, really, my first thoughts is, I think they're kind of spot on about the selective hypocrisy, right? Or the selective outrage, rather, about this. One specific app, let's just say TikTok, right? That's who they're talking about. But, why don't our lawmakers care when, potentially other, millions of people are affected, right? So I think the lack of consistency and the lack of action being done at least from the United States perspective, which I assume this is what it's written by, right, is what I think the author is getting at, right? Like, for example, we have privacy laws all over. Different states are passing their own privacy laws, right? So I know Texas, California's got some, but there's no overarching privacy law for the entire country, right? That creates confusion and, chaos for even companies in the US when dealing with, customers from Texas, California, or whatever it might be, having different reporting requirements, right? It just creates like a data or database of complexity of database, right? It's just very difficult on the management side of the house because there's no overarching privacy laws, right? There's nothing like that in the U.S. and it's just very selective in their targeting of that. And I really think that the government's failure to regulate the data market, like, and then if you just prioritize profits and then over consumer privacy and national security, really, it's like really what this comes down to. If a certain organization or let's just say a lobbyist has an ear with a specific politician or group, it's over, right? The U.S. does not prioritize really data, or rather regulation of our data. Like, to me, it's it should be treated like intellectual property. Our social security, our birth dates, our personal information, our location. It should be pretty much CUI, in my opinion, right?
But that's valuable to the companies, right? Like,
correct.
You know what I mean? That's what the value is in what we are doing and what we are spending our money on.
Correct.
That's why you can get Facebook for free. That's why you can sign up for X for free, right? So they can have that information and sell it as need be.
Right. And there's also like the AI implications of this. Like, you've got all this data, like, I guess Saudi Arabia, whoever is going to feed it all into AI. And I just thought about this. 100 million users for Pokemon Go, they're international, right?
Yes,
You're talking
all over the world. Yeah.
all over the world, right? So that in itself, like, that doesn't, though some of the European users care about this, right? Then I guess, is it just not making the news? Are people just not finding out about it?
So
right. So it's like,
I don't know how that works though, because it was an American company that had it, right? So how does
true.
EU deal with that?
Right. We don't know, right? We don't have that. But all this talk makes me want to get the SIP certifications, right? I think that's really cool. Every time
Right.
we get a
Privacy. Yeah.
we're like, man, we should do privacy, guys. Like, it's just a really cool topic. But yeah, those are my quick thoughts. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think it's the 6 degrees of separation that's making people not completely outraged. So my history with Pokemon Go is non-existent because it should have been something I was into for a quick second, right? Even as a grown man, I get it. But with 100 million people, I wouldn't be by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But it came out when I was in Sicily, and my mobile coverage was crap. So it launched. I was able to download it, but I wasn't able to play it. So I was in Sicily half a year or more, and when I got back to the States, it was still fresh and everybody was still playing it. But I was just like, I'll do something different, right? Just because like the heat had kind of cooled down for me. But I did see people just randomly walking around, swiping at nothing, right? So people driving around in cars looking for Pokemans, as they would say. So it was interesting to me, but I just never got into it. So not knocking people who do it. But Pokemon's made by Game Freak. That's a Japanese company. The IP was licensed by Niantic, which is a software developer in the U.S. And their mission statement, and I'm going somewhere here, so I'm going to read a bunch of different companies, right? Their mission statement is aligning our technology solutions and platforms. Niantic's spatial platform brings together the best of our capture, locate, and augment tools, services, and products to unlock spatial experiences across devices and locations. And then they talk about their spatial map and their visual positioning system. They have a lot of very bespoke and intellectual property dealing with the capture of geospatial data. That's just what they do. They're really good at it. So They've been around since 2010. They were initially Niantic Labs. They since switched to Niantic, and they license this stuff out. They've been capturing data for. They have some of the best virtual maps because they've been capturing data for over a decade now, almost 2 decades. So they started Pokemon Go. That was 2016. They had it until 2025, in which they were sold, or the data was sold to a company called Scopely. Scopely is also out of the U.S. They are a video game developer and publisher headquartered in Culver City, California. And they've been around since 2011, and they are the ones who procured this data. But who is Scopely owned by? So Scopely is part of the Savvy with two V's, so SAVVY Gaming Group, which is a Saudi Arabian video game investment, development, publishing, and esports company based in Saudi Arabia. The company was founded by the country's sovereign wealth fund, public investment fund, to foster the growth of gaming industry in the kingdom and invest in foreign video game companies. So that's where you keep seeing, like, it's the shift. Who's this owned by? Who's this owned by? Who's this owned by? So is what they're doing going to potentially be used outside of the scope of video gaming? Potentially. They own the data now, right? They're the company who owns the company who bought it from the U.S. company. So as you can see,
Mm-hmm. It's just like the chain of custody is all
Yeah.
over the place.
But the way I can see this going though is like when you read out the Savvy, right, the Saudi company, like they're putting it out there, like they're not hiding it that we're just investing in other things. We're not creating anything ourselves. We're just going to invest in it, right? So like, what happens when something that Microsoft has bought, right, or Sony has bought is no longer turning a profit and they don't want it anymore? What are they going to do? They're going to sell it to this sovereign wealth fund, right? So it's going to happen again to where something that has a lot of data privacy. I don't want to say data privacy concerns, right? But something that we should be concerned about with data privacy, which is everything that we deal with nowadays, right? It's in every EULA.
Because they've been mapping out the streets for over a decade now.
Yeah. Since 2010, you said, right?
Yep, 2010.
Whenever the labs, right? Niantic Labs. But it's only a matter of time before we see this again, right? And it's going to this wealth fund or whatever. They're like, yep, we'll acquire that too, right?
Yeah, and it's not to say that they're going to potentially do anything nefarious. It's just that the same issue that we had with TikTok, which I still have with TikTok, with it being not divested to a U.S. company, is the same thing that's happening here. It's just one more degree of separation, right? It's not like the U.S. and then CCP China. This is the U.S. to the U.S. to the sovereign wealth fund. And again, not to say they're going to do anything nefarious with it, but what rules and regulations stop them from taking this data and using it for other purposes, or to sell it to another company or another group or what have you? And I get what Saudi is doing when it comes to their investments, because it's pretty smart, right? Like you see them, they own Uber and they own a bunch of like video game companies, and they're diversifying their money that may be coming from like oil and other things that could become scarce, or like one day somebody might invent perpetual motion. We don't know, but they'll be protected because they have all of these other investments, right? So they're covering their bases, like Wu-Tang would say, they're diversifying their bonds, right? They're making sure that they're covered in case something happens to where they got the original wealth from. I get that. But what's to stop them from selling this data to like what if Russia wants it? Like, here you go. And tosses it up to them. So that is the apprehension. That's the same thing when it comes to the TikTok. But again, there's just another degree of separation in here, which makes it seem less likely to happen. But still, we just don't know what they're going to do with all of this. They have all of this street data. They people fly to other countries in order to be part of these Pokemon events, right? So you're getting all of this trajectory. You're getting all of this personal movement, and it could be used for so many things. You can
like all these heat maps of you, right?
Yeah.
Like
like whether you want to target a specific person, or if you like, let's say, hey, we're wargaming and we have all of this data. We know about all these alleys and streetways and things that are off the main roads because that's what people did, right? They went to Pokemon stops in the middle of fields. Like they have all of this information all in one neat package. So that makes it a little dangerous, in my opinion.
As A Boogie with the hoodie would say, it's money over everything, right?
Is that what he would say?
Ain't that a song? Ain't that a song? A Boogie
I
with the
think so.
Hoodie.
Yeah, I think so. That's hilarious. But I don't know. I really enjoyed pulling the threads on this one just because like you just don't know who's owned by whom. Like, and especially in the video game space, we see a lot of companies are falling underneath China because of Tencent. But now we see the Saudi wealth fund owns a lot of companies as well, and then it's pervasive from there. And again, not trying to say that they're going to do anything nefarious with the data, right? It's just if we're concerned about the NSA and the FBI in our own country, like, should we be concerned about other countries having, our heat maps and data and so forth? I just don't think we think enough steps ahead is the problem. So, but that's just my 2 cents. But definitely continue to check us out. And other conspiracies we might be bringing up throughout the weeks. Monday and Tuesday are our topics. Wednesday discussion. Thursdays Ask a CISSP, and then Fridays everything else: movies, books, games, all that cool stuff. You can find us at the other side of the firewall, the other side of the FW, or Ask a CISSP all over the interwebs. RamCyber.io is also a good way station to stop by. Not much there yet. And then you can hit me up personally. I'm at RY Security Guy. That's RY Security Guy. You can find me on all the platforms, but LinkedIn is where I'll get back to you. And where can they find you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Chris Abicon, last name spelled A Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe. Stay secure.